has sought to go behind the scenes of each feature the opposition leader and parliamentary representative for the Lapland constituency, Mr. Honorable Ron Green, on Dominica Sources, Know Your Leader. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Ronald Green.
Good afternoon.
I'm Grace Henderson. I want to welcome you to Dominica Sources, Know Your Leader. We first of all want to go into you and your life growing up as a young man aspiring into...
Because of the experience in Nigeria and Uganda, but more importantly, I think when I returned back to the States in the very early 70s, I met a number of Dominicans at the time who were studying at various universities. And I also got engaged and involved in two things. One, the civil rights struggle in the United States, and two, organizing Dominicans in and around New York. And I think the combined experience of engaging myself in the civil rights struggle, I went to Mississippi and worked there for a few months, registering black voters, working with SNCC, that's a Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I organized Dominicans in Support of Progress. That is the whole range of young Dominicans who were living in New York, some going to school, some working, to support various efforts in Dominica. So I think the combined experience of working in the civil rights movement, organizing Dominicans, and meeting people like Arthur Martin, Rosie Douglas, Hilroy Thomas, Joey Pelletier, Dr. Rivera, Para Rivera, Bernard Wilshire, Donald Peters, all of whom at that time were students in Boston, in New York, and in Toronto. Marlene Green. All these people had a major impact. Arthur Martin had a major impact in my decision to come back to Dominica.
Ron Green, the politician, and remain in politics?
Well, I was in politics before I really developed a family. So when I met my wife, I had my first daughter. I had already been fairly immersed in what you call politics and community development, community activity, and what's considered to be politics.
What about the other members of parliament? What's the relationship there?
Good. I mean, we work as a team, and each has his own particular skills and his own particular peculiarities. So we work together, and each demonstrates when the opportunity comes in Parliament and out of Parliament, what they're about. So I enjoy working with the members of the United Workers' Party.
Most people, if not all, see you as a quiet, humble, and respectful person who might not be aggressive enough to be in the dog-eat-dog, as they might say, of politics. Does that in any way deter you?
No, in no way. I don't think it necessarily takes aggression. I think it takes a good, solid team of capable, experienced persons. It takes commitment, and it takes a plan. It takes coming up with what is the best thing to do for Dominica, and working at it. And I experienced that between 95 and 2000, and I was impressed and pleased, and I learned something from that experience. So for me, being aggressive isn't a necessary trait, although in Dominica one has to be able to assert oneself.
Of all the countries you visited, where is your favorite and why?
Oh, I loved Uganda very much, although unfortunately there was a coup d'etat in my last year there, and I did have the chance to go back and see Uganda some years later, and it had been seriously devastated by the coup. That's Idi Amin. I loved it because it resembled Dominica most. The hills and the rivers and the lakes. But of course, Dominica is home, and there's no place like home. But I do remember that Uganda struck a chord because of the mountains and the rivers and the lakes and the resemblance to Dominica.
How would you describe your relationship with Dominica?
Well, Dominica is home. Dominica is, you see, my parents also, although they lived in New York and they retired eventually and came back home, but they spent some 40 plus years in New York City. But they were Dominicans living in New York City. They never fully became American. So we had, Dominican food, the Creole language, and friends, the network of Dominicans that lived in New York was an important part of my upbringing, and as a result, it strengthened my resolve to come back here. Yeah.
So what do you love most about Dominica?
Oh boy, there's so much to say. I mean, Dominica is just home. I mean, I think home is home. I think it's the natural beauty of Dominica, the blessings that we have in terms of the sea, the rivers, the mountains. I never fail to, find beauty in different corners of the country. So it's just everything about Dominica I love. I don't think I can pick one thing that is more, that is higher than the other, that I love more. Dominica is home, and I love it better than any other place in the world.
Ron Green, the family man. Mr. Green, how and where did you meet your wife?
I met my wife actually in Roseau just coincidentally, her sister apparently was working with a trade union in Roseau, and I was having discussions with, that's back in a long while ago, 70s, late 70s, and she came in to talk to her sister, and I saw her, and I said, wow, or whatever I said, I don't remember. But I asked her sister who she was, and I eventually got to, that's how I first met her.